Hey, Andrea, I'm so happy to be speaking with you today. Thank you so much for joining and hosting this culture talk on Venezuela. And I know from just what I know so far about you and your mom. So you and your mom, Carmen, are mother-daughter team that run the food truck. So tell me a little bit about you, about it, and kind of what you do.
Okay. Yeah. So it is run by my mother and I. She's from Venezuela. I was born here, raised in Mexico, and we've been back since I started college. So she came back with me, and in 2011 we decided to open Budares for the first time, and we opened on Rainy Street in Austin, Texas. And we were the first Venezuelan food truck in Austin at the time.
Very cool. Very cool. So what does the name mean? Does it have a meaning? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
so Budare is the cast iron griddle where you make arepas and cachapas. So that's what the word means.
That that's really cool. So then, okay, so there's probably a story behind that, but go ahead and tell me. I'm curious. So your mom, you said that you all started it in it was 2011.
Yes, so
Okay.
we started in 2011. We
Yeah.
were open for a few years, and then like all the houses on Rainy started selling,
Yeah.
and they started building those huge condo buildings. And so
Yeah.
the owner of the house where we were renting the space for the food truck sold the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took like a couple of years to we continued like being a catering business because we've
Yeah.
always done catering. So we were just doing that for a couple of years until we found the good space again where we wanted to be in.
Yeah.
And we actually tried on 6th Street for a while, but East 6th Street, it was more of a bar crowd, and it wasn't really what we were trying to cater to.
Right.
So we were there for a little bit, and then we decided finally to establish again the food truck in Burnett Road, which is much more of a neighborhood feel,
Right.
more family oriented. So we've been there since 2016.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting you say family. Your reviews are all about how you are so family oriented. I mean, people are like they feel just like family being there. And I want to ask, I mean, they sense that passion, through just being there and experiencing Bodega. So what's kind of the passion that spurred your mom, to start it, and what through what passion, did the cafe form, did the food truck, like her inspiration, what was that?
Yeah, so she went to college in Philadelphia. She went to school. She was an interior designer for many, many years. But while in Philadelphia, the cheesesteaks are super famous there, and it's something you eat on the street. And there wasn't really any Venezuelan food while she was there for college, so she missed that. And like in the back of her head, she always wanted to open Venezuelan food. But then, she moved to Mexico, and she continued practicing interior design for many years. So when she came back to the US, when she came back after I started college here, we talked about it. We said it's like the perfect time. There's a huge food truck culture in Austin, and people are definitely very open to other cuisines. So we said, let's do it. Now it's the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what's kind of the cultural story? Tell me about, obviously she's from Venezuela, and what's the cultural story behind your menu choices? I see, obviously, like for me, I've heard of the arepa, right? But I don't know a lot about it. I've noticed some other items on your menu, and I'm curious, how are they characterized in different regions in Venezuela? What kind of, are certain things on your menu popular in certain places regionally, or just the country in general? So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So really the items that we have, I would say, are like the staples, like the most popular items in Venezuela. The arepa is something that everybody makes at home, right? It's kind of like, I sometimes compare it to like tacos in Mexico, because it's something you can eat out on the street, but also at home, everybody makes them, right?
Mhm.
So that is like an everyday item in every household. Like I remember going there to visit my grandparents, and like we would eat arepas every morning, right? So it's something like, it's just a staple food in every household. Obviously for the food truck, they're made more like street style, right? Because that's what people are looking for,
Yeah.
eating at. And then we have the empanadas, which is definitely something you eat on the street in Venezuela. Like that's, you know, like a street food. The tequenos, which are, it's like a cheese stick, but it's made with a pastry. So instead of like your, you know, mozzarella cheese sticks that are breadcrumbs, I believe, this is pastry. So we have a recipe that's from my grandmother and her sisters, and that's the one we've been using. And that's something that there's a saying in Venezuela, like it goes like something like there's no party without a tequeño, because it's like food that it's in every party.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's, yeah.
that's so cool. But it's your grandmother's recipe.
What's
So
that?
like it's your grandmother's recipe.
The tequeño is food in Venezuela, but the dough that we
The dough
use,
that you use
yeah,
for
yes.
that. So that's how ingrained it is. It's like it's part of the culture. It's ingrained in the culture so much that like even the recipe for the dough is like passed on.
Oh yes.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool to learn. So what kind of cheese? Like I saw the, you know, like we know here in America, obviously like the cheese stick, but like, or mozzarella stick, like you said, but what kind of cheese do you all use? Is it like a traditional?
It is. We use traditional Venezuelan cheese. There's a couple of companies. Actually, one of our vendors is in Houston. They specialize in Venezuelan cheeses. And we buy a lot of the cheeses from there. We buy guayanés, queso duro, queso de mano. Queso de mano, for example, is very popular for the cachapas. It's like a mozzarella type of cheese, which is kind of in layers. So that's the one that we use specifically for the cachapas, which are a very popular item. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then what's the difference with the, so there's a, with your, how do you have to correct me now, I'm not great at pronouncing things, but the, on your appetizer menu, the arepitas, or correct me if I, yeah.
Yeah, arepitas are just like, just regular arepas, but they're small and they're deep fried.
Okay. So the cream that's there, is that a different, like, you know, what is that compared to the cheeses that are, you know what I mean, like the base of it? If it's a cream, is it sweet? Is it tangy? Is it?
The arepitas, usually you eat them with nata, which is like, how would I explain it? Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a cream, not so much like a sour cream, but basically a cream.
Okay.
Like made of berry.
Like a dip.
Fat. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the arepitas is just that, like you just fry it. It's common in some restaurants, like they give you like arepitas as an appetizer.
Okay.
And it's just like the fried dough. Because arepa can be grilled or deep fried. So a lot of people order deep fried as well.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
So is there a difference between, so regionally, I'm curious, regionally how that might differ. So where your mother grew up, you know, are things prepared differently? So deep fry versus grill versus what have you, that you kind of, you know, carry through the way that you do things at Budares?
I think it's regional. I think it's more like a choice. Some people really like the arepa fried. But I don't know. At least I'm not familiar with it being like from like a specific region in Venezuela.
Right.
Like,
it's just the way.
Yeah, the way they're prepared, and some people are like, fried is the way to go.
Right. Yeah. No, I always like to, you know, you look at something or you experience it and you're like, oh, this tastes really good, but there's always a story behind it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's really great. So in terms of I'm curious about you have some drinks on your menu, you have some desserts on your menu. Tell me a little bit, and you touched on your grandmother, like the dough that you use, you know, is from her and her sister's recipe. But what are some other things, some defining qualities about the way that you present things, or the tradition, or the, you know, some other things about the recipes that are defined in the way that you would find in Venezuela, that, you know, your mom was like, we have to have it this way, or this, you know what I mean? Like, Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that.
So yeah, I mean, just like the recipes in general that we use is, the recipes that I've been eating all my life, like growing up, outside of Venezuela, growing up in Mexico. But my mom always made sure that we were very close to the culture, and it's always like food has been like a major channel of that, right? To stay connected to the culture.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we just wanted to make everything like really traditional, because especially in opening a Venezuelan food truck in Austin when there was actually like no other place, so we were kind of just really wanting people to get to know the cuisine, and we didn't want to experiment too much at the beginning, right? Like no fusions or not a lot of like just made up stuff with mixing the traditional with the creativity, because we wanted people to know the traditional foods from Venezuela. So everything is very homemade. You eat there and like you definitely feel the experience. And my mom, when she starts talking to people, she always loves to tell them, about her being in Venezuela, or like even when Venezuelans come, like it's always a conversation, and like make sure that people experience not just the food, but they learn a little bit more about the country and the culture.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And actually what you said about food being a channel to the culture, that is so true. And I want to get into that a little bit. And you mentioned homemade. I saw your mom making the dough. Like it's made fresh. Everything's made fresh today.
Oh yeah, everything is made fresh. The empanadas, everything are made to order.
Yeah. It's like your own mother cooking for you. I mean, that's what I got. Just the vibe that I got.
Really, that's one of the things. Like as we grow, we're concerned, because my mom is like, the face of the food truck and everything, but she's also very involved in the food making, and it's also something that we struggle with, like, oh, it needs to be like the same way you make it if you're ever like not so involved in the cooking process.
Right. And so keep track of recipes and all of that. And the fact that she has, that you mentioned that the conversation will learn a little bit about the culture and about Venezuela. So let's get into a little bit about traveling to Venezuela. Where and either you or your mom, where and when have you been? And what are some of your favorite things to see or do there?
Yeah. So my mom is from Anaco in Venezuela. She moved a lot when she was a kid, because my dad, not my dad, her dad, my grandfather, used to work for PDVSA, which was a big oil company. And so they moved a lot. So she's been, she grew up in many different places in Venezuela. And I used to go every summer up until, I think the last time I was there was it's more than 15 years ago. The current situation, I haven't been there in a really long time.
Yeah.
But I used to go to Caracas, which was an amazing city, still is, but I remember it's such a big metropolis and beautiful, nestled in the valley.
Yeah.
And then we used to go to Valencia and Puerto Cabello, which is where my grandparents used to live by the coast. It was a coast city. And then my aunt lived in the Amazon jungle of Venezuela. And I remember, I think I was like 12 when we did that trip. We went into the Amazon jungle. So like, if anybody wants to visit Venezuela, I would definitely recommend that. It is an amazing area. Beautiful. Yes.
So, you have experienced the coast, the valleys, the jungle. It sounds very, very diverse. What's kind of the spirit? So you've been all over. I mean, you've experienced it, but also your family.
Yeah, there's still a lot I haven't seen in Venezuela that I am dying, to go back to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I used to visit specifically those cities because that's where I have family. So Valencia and Caracas are relatively, well, Caracas is huge. Valencia is also another big city.
Yeah.
But yes, it's such a beautiful country.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. Yeah.
And so the natural, so besides like the food, obviously the food is a big part of culture, but the music, the sights, the diversity of just the geographic location of where it is, that there's a lot to experience.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I'm curious about kind of the way of life. So, when you've been there, or just something that sticks with you, you know what I mean? Something about it that sticks with you, like a spirit about it that you feel like you carry through, or say like you have these deja vu moments of maybe, when you're there in the food truck, whether it's the smells or the sounds or just like seeing people dining, you know, outside at your picnic tables, like what kind of spirit of way of life do you carry through?
It's funny you mentioned that, because not so long ago I had one of those moments
Mm-hmm.
where it was in Austin, so it was like really sticky and humid.
Mm-hmm.
And like the smell, like I remember every afternoon in my grandparents' house, you know, as kids we were playing all the time, but then in the afternoons all the neighbors would basically like open up their houses to like the street, and you would like jump from one house to another.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that smell in a beach town in the afternoons when it's like humid and the sun's setting and you're just like going from house to house. Like I don't know, like there was something that like I smelled and it brought me back. So it's funny that
yeah. So it's like you experience that. So it's like your location. It's like it creates that. It's that authentic. You know what I mean? So
it was almost like a bleach. It was like a bleach smell from like being in the pool all day, mixed with like sun, and like it was something weird.
Right.
I smelled it, and I was like, oh, that's
and you just felt
my grandparents' house. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I love that story. So actually, speaking of the senses, so if we can get the five senses, I mean, food obviously can be taste, but you know, there's four other senses: touch, sight, you know, sounds. What kind of things, like from the colors to the decor to the ambiance to the, you know, kind of evoke those senses there when people come, you know, and visit you to try the food? Like, what else can they experience?
Yeah, I mean, the definitely like the colors. You know, the flag is you know, red, blue, and yellow. So we try to include those colors so that, you know, people identify it with Venezuela. And music, we're always playing music there, Latin music, and just, you know, the I feel like the warmth in general of Latin people is what we want, you know, people to associate with Budares, and like the food obviously, but just to come to Budares and have a pleasant experience and establish a relationship, because I feel like in Latin cultures we're very open, we're very warm, and we want to pass that on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's something I get a sense for, just, you know, the fact that your family oriented, your family owned, your mom uses recipes, you know, that she grew up with that were passed down. Your menu features all the staples and the traditional foods that, you know, someone would experience if they were in Venezuela. And, you know, the fact that, you know, you had that like reminder, even just being there. I love that. And I love too that she's like she wants to talk to everyone. So it's not just like, hey, thanks for being a patron of our, you know, restaurant, but she's like, hey, you know, like I can picture her just being like really warm and welcoming and just like, you know what I mean?
No, we have a joke in the family that like my mom would talk to a wall. She like, and it's like her favorite thing.
Yeah. No, that's so great. I love that, and that comes through, and that's, you know, a testament to the culture itself, and just the way that like you said, like the Latin culture and Latin people are just very warm, and that carries through, you know, through the experience at Budare. So I love to hear that. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And
yes,
I really want to, of course, and I want to really encourage everyone to come and check you out and try the food. It sounds amazing.
Yes.
And they're gonna love your mom.
Yes.
Yeah,
That would be great.
Awesome.